For as long as I can remember, I have been getting dumb questions about my culture. Are you Indian? What's that red dot on your mom's forehead? Do they have toilets in India? Do they ride elephants to school there? Does it taste like curry? What I find particularly infuriating and isolating about this problem is that no other Indian people I talk to in real life seem to have the same problem as me. I ask them, don't you get dumb questions about being Indian all the time? And they say, no, I don't get dumb questions about being Indian. Then I say, why me? Why do I get all the questions? Do I just have a friendly aura? And then they say, no, Kara, you do not have a friendly aura. Perhaps you just need to chill out and stop getting pissed off over every little thing. And then I say, over my dead body. Welcome to the Coconut Republic.
People are stupid, homie, that's just the way it is.
I am sure you've heard the phrase before, there's no such thing as dumb questions. But let me ask you this, have you ever heard an Indian person say that? Exactly. As I said in the intro when I was having a conversation with myself, I have been getting dumb questions about being Indian since I was born. But lately, it's been happening a lot more frequently than usual. It's no secret that the world now, more than ever, is filled with dumbasses. People have lost their sense of shame. They no longer have that voice inside of their head that says, hey, that's a pretty stupid and insensitive question. I wouldn't ask that if I were you. So, in addition to being the founder, president, prime minister, commander-in-chief, and supreme leader of the Coconut Republic, I'm also a nurse. I don't know if you knew that. I only mention it every 10 seconds on this channel. And as such, the population that I work with on a daily basis is, how you say, belonging to a specific generation. A generation that has apparently, never met an Indian person before in their entire lives. I would call them baby boomers, but apparently that's not the politically correct term anymore. Calling someone a boomer can be quite offensive, so consider using more sensitive terminology when referring to the old people in your life. Consequently, this would explain why I get so many dumb questions and remarks about my culture in comparison to other people in my community. I'm just around people that don't have a filter. On the first day of one of my nursing jobs, I had a patient ask me, hey, so, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but, are you a Patel? I was quite confused as to what this man was asking me. Was he asking me if my last name was Patel? Was he asking me if I was Gujarati? Or was he asking me if I'm Indian, silly style? The answer to those questions are no, and yes. In that order. I know some Indian people don't like being asked if they're Indian. I personally don't mind, so long as you ask it respectfully, you know? If you say, hey, if you don't mind me asking, what's your ethnicity? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a perfectly normal question to ask somebody. Just don't be stupid and ask something like, where are you from? No, where are you really from? No, where were you from before that? Sorry, too close. I don't have a problem with someone asking me what my ethnicity is. I have a problem with the follow-up questions. When someone asks me what's my ethnicity, I answer Indian begrudgingly. Not because I'm ashamed to be Indian. Nay. It's because I know I'm about to hear the dumbest fucking question I have ever heard in my entire life. A patient once asked me, and this is a true story. I mean, everything I'm saying in this video is a true story, but I just need to reiterate it for this one because this actually happened. A patient once asked me, are you Indian? And I said, yes, I'm Indian. And then he looked me square in my eyeballs and asked me, what is curry? I'm not gonna lie to you, I fucking burst out laughing. Are you Indian? What is curry? I simply cannot believe this was a real conversation I had with someone. If you're having trouble understanding why this is such a ridiculous thing to ask somebody, replace Indian with any other group of people. Are you white? What is casserole? Are you Chinese? What is egg roll? Are you Mexican? What is pinto bean? Are you black? What is... Nope. One of the wildest interactions I've ever had with a patient was back when I was a nursing student. Picture it. Timid, terrified, 20-year-old Gara in the ER having to do a silly little head-to-toe assessment on one patient. I walk into a patient's room, and before I can say anything to her, she asks me, "Are you Indian?" I say yes. And then she says, "I have a brother that does missionary work in India." And I said, "Kinky." I didn't say that. I said, "Fantastic, amazing, love that." And then she goes, "My brother works with a Christian priest there, another Indian man, and he is so dark-skinned. He is so dark. He's even darker than you. He's so dark, he's almost black." And I'm just standing there like, how do I even respond to this woman? My flabbers were gasted, and before I could even formulate a coherent thought, she pulls out her phone, dials her brother in India, and hands me the phone. "Hello? Hi, my name is Kara, means spicy. I'm a nursing student. I'm with your sister in the ER. No, she's fine. She's totally fine. She was just telling me a story about your missionary work in India and how you work with a priest that's impossibly dark-skinned, and she was telling me that he's darker than me." Yes, I am Indian. Well, that's kind of a complex question. I mean, the definition of curry varies on what region of India you go to. What I wonder is if people are this stupid today, in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025, how did the South Asian people that first immigrated to America deal with this? How did they deal with all the dumb questions and remarks without wanting to bash their heads into a wall 24/7? And I can hear the haters right now. "Gara, as per usual, you're being too sensitive." It's a compliment that people are trying to understand your culture better by asking you questions, especially in this age of unabashed Indian hatred. Would you rather they ask Google and get their answers from AI? Rather than getting upset, you should be grateful that people are making an attempt to get to know your background better as opposed to scoffing at your culture. Grateful? You want me to be grateful for all the ignorant fucking questions I get? You want me to fall to my knees and be like, "Oh, great big American, you're gracing me with your attention? You're talking to me, a lowly curry-munching jungle monkey?" You want me to be grateful that I'm not getting hate crimed? What else do you want me to be grateful for, Desegregated public schools? The British pulling out of India in 1947? I wish my dad pulled out of my mom in 1998 so I wouldn't be here having this fuck-ass conversation with you. All right, I'll be the first to say it. It's not all bad. Occasionally, I get comments and questions that put a smile on my face. Way back in the day, I used to be a cashier at a grocery store, and this one guy I was ringing up, he was like this stereotypical, 90s movie California stoner guy, and he looked at my name tag, and he was like, "Were you named after the Ramayana?" My real name has absolutely nothing to do with the Ramayana, but I didn't correct him because 1, I didn't feel like having that full conversation with him that day, and 2, I thought the way he pronounced Ramayana was very endearing. I'm honestly even surprised he knew what that was. And so I told him, "Yeah, I'm named after this great Hindu epic, and yet here I am, a cashier at a grocery store." And then he said, "Well, hey, don't sweat it. Your Ramayana days are coming. This is just like the prequel that no one cares about. Like Star Wars." And I was like, why is that the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me? Fast forward to my nursing era. This one time in the hospital, I had a patient who was this elderly Iranian woman, and she asked me, "Are you Indian?" I said, "Yes." And she told me the story. She said, "When my family and I first left Iran, we went to Pakistan as refugees. And we went to this restaurant there, and the waiter asked us if we wanted any kheer. In my language, kheer means penis." Dick jokes from an elderly Iranian woman is crazy, FYI. Could you imagine being refugees and then letting your hair down one night to go out to a restaurant with your family, and then some waiter sets down a cup of unidentifiable white liquid and says, "Your kheer, madam. I sprinkled a couple extra nuts on top, just for you." I'd like to close out this video by just admitting that I'm not perfect. I've had my fair share of faux pauses. Which brings me to my new segment here on the Coconut Republic, the part of the episode where I overshare about my life and my past and call it content. This is the Coconut Monologues.
You sly dog, you got me monologuing.
All right, here we go. I used to have a white coworker who had fair skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair. She once told me that her ex-husband was a skinhead. I told her that checks out. You have a very Aryan look to you. She turned around and walked away without responding to that remark from me. In a history class in college, a guy asked me, "Did we have any homework last night?" I thought he was doing a silly voice to be funny, so I thought I'd be silly back to him, and I said, "Did we have any homework last night? Crikey, I sure fucking hope not, because I didn't do no homework last night." Turns out, he was not doing a silly voice. That was his real voice. I had momentarily forgotten that Australians were real. What was an Australian person doing in a US history class, by the way? Riddle me that. My ex-boss was a Korean lady. The first week of the job, I told her assistant that I had a question about paychecks, and she said she'll let my boss know. My boss later came up to me that day and asked me, in her accented voice, "You have a question?" I said, "What?" She repeated, "You have a Christian?" And I said, "No, I'm not Christian." It's a wonder why I don't work there anymore. I once made a 9/11 joke when I was on a date with a Muslim man. I don't remember what the joke was, but I think it had something to do with his occupation. He was an aerospace engineer for Boeing. Okay. One more. In the grocery store I used to work at, I had a tall Asian coworker named Steve. I hadn't seen Steve for a few weeks, and when he finally came back to work, I asked him where he'd been. He said he was at a sports agent conference in Las Vegas. He said he secured an internship with the NBA. I asked him, "Why? Did they think you were Yao Ming?" That one still haunts me to this day. Okay. Cut the music, cut the cameras, cut the music. Put your fucking pitchforks down and hear me out for a second, okay? It is a blessing and a privilege to live and work alongside people that come from completely different worlds than me. The way I bond with people is through humor, and you know as well as I that a lighthearted joke can quickly turn into a microaggression and can quickly turn into a trip to the HR office. I'm only human. We're all only human. And to err is to be human. Even if I try my best to think twice before I say anything, I'm still bound to say something stupid. So how do I avoid that? Just not talk to people? I think not. We may not always say the right things, but what matters is that we learn from our mistakes. So please, give me some grace. And if you're feeling generous, give me some room to grow. And I promise you, I will be a better person than I was yesterday. What was this video about again?